Camp Terror. This happened when I was a camp counselor and canoe instructor at a kids' camp in the Blue Ridge Mountains in the late 80s. Couple of things to know about me. I'm a very experienced outdoorsman and I don't scare easily. Even at the time that this story took place, I was only 17. I had already spent many nights alone in the wilderness. I know what sounds the woods make and what animals do what. What we experienced was none of the above. While planning a 3-day trip for my campers, I asked about one campsite near a dam that was basically off limits, according to the trip director. The reason is that 2 summers prior, a group from the only other camp on the lake went there and tragically they lost a camper. A boy of about 11 drowned at the top of the dam when the counselors weren't watching. Tragic. Nonetheless, I wanted to take my group there, and I was told I could as long as we didn't let the kids swim near the dam. Done deal. We arrived at the site on our last day of our trip. There were a few strange things that happened during the day, such as a towel and t-shirt disappearing from a clothesline near the tent site. They somehow ended up in the water at the top of the dam several meters away, even with no wind. Twice I had to swim down to retrieve the items, and I admit, it crossed my mind while I was at the bottom that this may well have been where the boy's body ended up. Nevertheless, there was a creepy feeling around us. I don't think I was the only one who felt it, but no one said anything. At dusk, we were gathered around the campfire. It was not yet fully dark, and we were washing up and tidying a campsite before settling in front of the fire to pass the rest of the evening. Our group consisted of 2 17-year-old counselors and 8 12-year-old boys. We were laughing and horsing about when we first heard it. The sound stopped everyone in their tracks. If you've ever heard a big tree fall in the forest, it does indeed make a sound, a really loud one. They make popping and cracking sounds so loud that at first you don't know if it's gunshots or what. That's what we heard. The evening was completely still, not even with a breeze, but somewhere nearby, a big-ass tree fell. It took about 10 seconds and we heard every part of it, right until it hit the ground. When a big tree falls, you can feel the earth shake and shudder. Everyone was terrified. I decided to try and be cool about it and told everyone that it was likely a bear pushing over dead trees looking for grubs. That was a ridiculous, stone-faced lie, and there were about 10 good reasons why this wasn't a fact, including that bears don't even do that. But I needed something to appease everyone, and that popped out. I went with it, and they believed me. Let's build up the fire and make some noise. It'll scare them away, I said. So we did. We sang, we banged pots and pans, and after 45 minutes everyone was chilled out. It was also now pitch black on the starless, moonless night. Then it happened again. However, this time it sounded much further off, perhaps a quarter mile away. Everyone looked at me for reassurance, and I said, "See? We're good. It's moving off." We were still mighty unsettled, but somewhat reassured that it did seem to be going farther away, which is what you want bad things to do. We all relaxed, and the evening wore on until about an hour later when it happened again. This time the sound was so close to where I was standing that I felt like a tree was going to fall on top of us. It was right beside me. I swear, but I saw nothing. I mean loud, and it was a big tree. Every pop and crack pierced our ears and made us jump. I fully expected it to fall right on top of us, but nothing happened. We heard it, but we saw nothing. And again, there was no ground shudder when the tree hit, which seemed impossible to me. Everyone stood frozen in terror, looking for me to give them the call to run for your life and looking like they might just kill me if I didn't. My own fear finally took over and I couldn't hold it together anymore. "Okay," I said, "let's get the hell out of here." In a flash, everyone was gone down the short path leading to the boats, including the other counselor. I had meant, let's pack up and do this orderly, but no such luck. One kid had stayed beside me, so with his help I put out the fire and did a quick sweep of the place. We then went down to the water's edge to find one canoe they had left for us. We paddled out into the channel and found the others rafted up and waiting. First question I asked was, "Who has a life jacket on?" Not one person had one. Not even the other counselor. What the hell? I was already unsure if I was going to keep my job for paddling at night, but the idea of paddling across a big lake at night without life jackets was a guaranteed end of summer for both of us. Never mind the obvious peril. Looking at the faces of everyone with the one flashlight that had managed to make it onto a boat, I realized there was no way anyone but me was going to go back there. I had one camper in my canoe, so he climbed into another boat and I paddled back alone. They were so terrified that they wouldn't even give me a flashlight. Once I hit the woods, it was the kind of dark that is the same with your eyes open or closed. I started up the short trail to where the tents were. I fully admit that I was terrified, but I knew I had to do it, and that was that. I remember talking out as loud as I could and wandering toward the site. Okay, whatever you are. I guess if you're going to get me, you're going to get me, but I need these life jackets and I need to keep those kids safe. In retrospect, I knew what or who was doing all this, and maybe I was pleading my case a bit, hoping for mercy. I also kind of felt a bit of responsibility and talked to him or it in the way I would one of my campers. Perhaps that made a difference. My plan was to find my way to the tent, as I knew I'd left my flashlight sitting in front of it before the lights went out. Without that, I'd never find the jackets, or the path down to the water. However, this proved to be unnecessary. I'm not sure if this is a coincidence, but somehow, in the complete darkness right after I said that, I took 1 or 2 steps and found all the life jackets piled together, right at my feet. I'm an organized trip leader, and I like a clean campsite. However, I recall that we were having a lazy day and things were a bit disheveled. I hadn't put all the life jackets in a pile that I recall. Further, I was with a group of typical messy and lazy boys and an equally lazy co-counselor. I'm sure none of them did it. Somehow, in the absolute pitch darkness, I mean hands out in front of your face, shuffling your feet rather than lift them, the very first thing I found was the pile of life jackets. Counting the life jackets as I picked them up, I found every last one of them. Turned around and was back at my boat a minute later. It still amazes me. We paddled back across the lake that night and made it to the main camp. Everyone made fun of us, although no one had an explanation. I went on to become a full instructor and trip guide. I've done epic trips since that, and that others only have dreamed of, but never experienced anything like that before or since. And I've experienced everything out there except a Sasquatch. I've asked every old salt, park ranger, and Canadian I've met about the experience. The only people who aren't completely stumped by it are the Aboriginals, First Nations Canadians. Their answer is simple. That was an angry spirit. You're lucky you were respectful to it. The last detail to add is that we went back the next day to retrieve the gear that we had left behind. But we found no evidence of fallen trees. We didn't really want to linger there, as you might imagine, but I was pissed and wanted an explanation, so I made everyone wait while I walked in the woods in the daylight. There was not even one tree down. Absolutely nothing to indicate that even a single tree had fallen the night before, within several hundred yards of us. And that's a true story.